Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you. When judgment comes for you. Tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you. 'Cause it's gonna come for you.
Making it for water, easy, see some for Charlie. Little boo for God's got him. And I'm gonna miss everybody out of roll and flow like I looked at a wild flag. And play for dust and they play too deep for beach side. Little legs I came to be. Told me your feature deceased, would it please? Marry me by my grand way. You can't go follow
God bless you, working on a plan to heaven.
Backbone Wrestling Network. Welcome back to the CrosUp, your weekly look back at the week that was in professional wrestling. This week I'll be running through the results on TV from the happenings from Raw on May 5th to Collision Part 2, as it turns out, on May the 30th, as well as starting with the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. So like I just said, we're going to start with Double or Nothing that happened last Sunday. As I said last week, we'll start the next week's episode with Clash in Italy that's actually taking place as we speak. But this week, we're going to start with Double or Nothing. We opened with Cope and Cage winning the AEW tag team titles in the I Quit match when Cage has Dax in the sharpshooter. Then Cope grabs his good old friend Spike, the big board with the nails in it, and uses that to lock in a crossface on Dax, and Dax eventually says, I quit. And like I said, that makes Cope Cage the new AEW team champions. It's their first tag team title win in 25 years, if you want to feel really, really old. We go to our next match for the International Championship. Konosuke Takeshita defeats Kazuchika Okada. Pitfall following fire. The new international champion. After the match, the Don Callis family comes in, and Takeshita and Okada kind of have a stare down. Kyle Fletcher then returns. He had been injured. He returns here. Fletcher kind of stands with Takeshita against the Don Callis family, who's seemingly turning on Takeshita, and hugs him as the rest of the family leaves. They kind of raise each other's hands and celebrate, but Fletcher eventually lays Takeshita out and then does a brainbuster. And then Okada hands Fletcher the International Championship, and he bashes Takeshita in the head with it and stands tall. So Fletcher seemingly was about to be on Takeshita's side, but he sides once again with the Don Callis family. So I'm very much looking forward to a Kyle Fletcher Konosuke Takeshita match as their best around currently. So we will see if that match happens. I imagine it will at some point. Obviously, I think they're going to build to it a little bit. So, but we then get our first Owen Hart women's tournament match where Athena defeats Mina Shirakawa via pinfall following the O-Face. So Athena advances to the semifinals with this win. This match was supposed to be Windsor versus Willow Gale, but as talked about last week, Willow is out with an injury, so they had to kind of shift around and put one of the other matches in the tournament here. But Athena moves on. We'll see who she ends up facing in the second round. We then have John Moxley. He finally defeats Kyle O'Reilly via submission. He actually beats him with his own move, Grapevine ankle lock, and Continental Championship. The conglomeration and the rest of the Death Riders come out afterwards, but they end up all shaking hands, seeming like they appreciate each other. But obviously, they are opponents in the long run, but they do respect each other all at the same time. So that was good to see. We then get our first men's Owen Hart tournament match where Will Ospreay defeats Samoa Joe via pinfall following multiple hidden blades. This advances Will to the semifinals. After the match, Joe kind of gives him a nod of respect before leaving because obviously Joe was pissed that Ospreay didn't join the Ops. But Joe seems to respect him as he leaves here. We then go to our second Owen Hart men's tournament match where Swerve Strickland defeats Bandito via pinfall following a house call. And this advances Swerve to the semifinals. Like I said with Will, we'll see who each of them face when we have a couple of matches on Dynamite to determine who advances to face them. We then have Tekla retain her women's world title over Hikaru Shida, Chris Statlander, and Jamie Hayter when she hits the stomp on Statlander for the win. We then go to Stadium Stampede. Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, the Syndicate, Jack Perry, and Kenny Omega defeat The Demand, the Dogs, Mark Davis, and Andrade Idolo in Stadium Stampede when the entire face team super kicks Bishop Khan, and then Jericho closes it with a long salt to get the win. We get, after the match, the Hurt Syndicate stand Jericho, and they do the thumbs up thing because that means that they like him and they're good with him going on in the future. And then we have Jericho set up a table, then jump through it, and it is a seemingly somewhat of a tribute to Sabu as he points to the sky in Sabu fashion. But you know, I appreciate that he did this for an old friend and stuff like that. But Sabu also died like over a year ago, so kind of weird that he's just now doing that. He was off TV for a while, so I guess I understand. But then we go to our main event. MJF wins the AEW World Title back. He hits a tombstone off the middle rope, and then he does his classic headlock takeover, and he becomes the AEW champion for the third time. Allen is loaded on a stretcher after the match, so MJF kind of goes after him. He stands on him with one foot and holds the title high. Kevin Knight then comes out randomly and runs in to save Darby from getting attacked by MJF, but he then does his does like a crazy UFO splash from the top rope to the outside onto Darby Allin on the stretcher, and a shocking move. So Kevin Knight seemingly turns heel here, and MJF is even shocked, but it's kind of like, okay, that's cool with me. And then that's kind of the face I'm making to end the show. So Kevin Knight with the big heel turn after. When Darby won the title, everybody kind of saw this coming. He did a hell of a job with Darby, and Darby did a hell of a job himself, elevating the title, making it, defending it on TV every week, sometimes twice a week. So it was a successful title reign. He may never win it again. I kind of hope he does somewhere down the line, but I always knew MJF was going to get it back. And I am interested to see if he keeps it all the way till All In, because I imagine Will Ospreay is going to win the Owen Hart tournament. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And like MJF and Ospreay is a cool matchup, but they seemingly started to try to build like a respect, like mentor kind of situation thing with Kenny. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny wins it somewhere between here and All In. And then they could do something with Mox. Mox, wins loses the Continental Championship somewhere along the way and wins the world title again and loses it to Ospreay. But see. But MJF is like the third most interesting person that I could see Ospreay facing at All In. But they did face each other at All In before, so they could tie back into that history. But it was an absolutely fantastic show. If you listen to guys like Dave Meltzer, multiple 5 matches, no match below 4 stars in the whole show for him. I thought it was really, really good. They had a show earlier in the year, Revolution, that I thought was a tad bit better. But this was absolutely incredible. But one of the 5-star matches he did give, I would also give 5 stars, and that is Takeshita versus Okada. Like I said earlier, Takeshita is one of the best in the world. Anytime he's on screen, you should be watching. Whether you're an AEW fan or not, he is one of the best, and he is a joy to watch every time he gets in. He has an absolutely incredible match on TV later in the week that I'll talk about as well. So, like I said, anytime screen you should be watching. But a really solid show top to bottom. A really great show, honestly, top to bottom. So if you haven't seen it, I would check it out if I was you. But we'll get on to the TV for the week. We go to Raw. Paul Heyman comes out to get things going, gets right to the point and says he is here to hype up the biggest rematch in history, but he is cut off by Obafemi chants. Heyman says Oba is going to be conquered by Brock Lesnar, which sends us to a video of Brock Lesnar leaving comments himself. He says he has never been beaten up like that. He isn't about to let his career end like that, being beat up and dominated like he was. We know Lesnar can take a beating, but can Oba? It's time for Oba to take a beating from a retired beast. We then go back to the arena. Heyman says it's time for to be destroyed, which then brings out Obafemi. He gets right in Heyman's face and asks what this has awoken in him. What did 4 F5s awaken in Femi himself? As Heyman cowers in fear, Femi says Heyman has to live to tell the tale of what happens when Femi retires Brock Lesnar for a second time. Femi pulls out the contract and signs it on his chest. The message to Lesnar is that last time Femi was fighting to beat him, this time he is fighting to kill the beast, Brock Lesnar. We then go to a Saturday night's main event recap, which was the previous Saturday, obviously. We then go to our next match. It's an Intercontinental title match. Penta defeats Javon Evans via pinfall following a Mexican destroyer. After the match, Penta raises Evans' hand, but Evans is frustrated and eventually leaves the ring kind of flustered. We can go from there. We learn that Logan Paul has a torn tricep and is going to be out for a few months. Austin Theory tries to hand Paul Heyman his tag team championship as he thinks they're going to have to vacate them. Heyman asks why he would do that. The contract says that the Vision are the tag champions, so Theory is now partners with Braun Breaker instead. Theory gives him a very enthusiastic hug, and Heyman eyes then bug out. Heyman then suggests that Theory needs to do something tonight to make an impact, and Theory should know what exactly that means. We then come back from commercial break. Joe Hendry is in the ring singing the song about firing Logan. This is when Austin Theory comes out and he beats the absolute dog shit out of Joe Hendry with the steel chair. So he's making an impact here. I believe he shows up again, so he continues to kind of make an impact throughout the night. And then if Seth Rollins come up to Angelo Dawkins and says he stayed out of the Street Profits way at Saturday night's main event, and he's sorry about what happened with them losing, obviously. Seth then saw what happened right out there, and Theory has never been like that. He's never been as unhinged as he was there. They need to unite to take out the Vision, but here's Montez Ford to say nothing good happens when Seth Rollins is involved. Seth Rollins says they don't have to like each other, but they need to work together to rid themselves of the Vision. He understands what it means to not trust someone and brings up his own successes that neither of them have ever had. Ford says he also never stabbed his own brother in the back, and he lays out a challenge for a main event match, and they seem to both accept that idea. Dawkins seems kind of annoyed that they can't get along. We then get a video hyping up the El Grande Americano versus the OG El Grande Americano match, with Rey Mysterio kind of hyping up the history and importance of a mask versus mask match, what it usually means in Lucha Libre when something like that happens. It's after a long blood feud, and it's like kind of the last, the last thing that they get to. It's kind of usually the blow off, and usually is a very impactful thing for that to have to happen. I won't go through that whole show. I will kind of talk about that once I get to the end of my recaps of the other shows, but I did watch it, and it was absolutely incredible, but I'll get to that when I get to that. We then go to Penta. He comes up to Javon Evans. Javon Evans apologizes for how he acted and how he was professional. Penta understands his frustration, and Javon then does say after that he is coming for the Intercontinental title, which Penta is totally okay with as he respects Evans. Evans then leaves. Mysterio comes in to talk to Penta about the show on Saturday with the mask versus match. They talk a little bit about that. They chat for a bit, and Penta even offers him an Intercontinental Championship match in the future. And Rey Mysterio says he is cool with that whenever it can be made. We then have Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. They defeat the Judgment Day Girls of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez when Dom gives Roxanne the AAA Mega title, but Bayley and Roxy end up kind of fighting over it. Bayley lets go, and so Roxanne kind of falls back into Dom, and then Bayley rolls her up, and Bayley and Lyra get the win. We then look back at Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns, the rivalry thus far. Fatu challenging Roman to tribal combat last week, and Roman accepting. Adam Pearce then talks to Reigns, saying Fatu should be fired. Reigns gets it and says he had to accept tribal combat because he is the tribal chief. He wants guarantees that if he wins, Fatu will serve him or be fired. If Reigns loses, though, we are all screwed because that means that Jacob would be the tribal chief, and he is obviously a loose cannon. We then have commentary thank the veterans for Memorial Day, and we kind of get our customary America kind of military package for the holiday of Memorial Day. So it's a cool thing that WWE does every year. So, but they laid that out here on Memorial Day. We then have LA Knight come out for a promo. He hasn't been here in a bit, but first of all, he wishes everyone a happy Memorial Day and thanks the military for their service. Now he's done with the Vision, though, and he's ready to do something new. Next week is the start of the King and Queen of the Ring tournament, and LA Knight wants in because he is aiming for the World Heavyweight Championship and Roman Reigns. That has him wondering about the Usos because they're with the most corrupt world champion ever. This brings out Jimmy Uso, who says he and Jay did what they had to do with Reigns. He's completely cool with LA Knight trying to be king of the ring, and if Knight wins, he gets a fair title shot at Roman. LA is kind of interested in the word fair because he's seen what the Usos have tried to do to Jacob Fatu. He doesn't want Jimmy to become Reigns' errand boy, but Jimmy calls him off, saying if LA Knight keeps this up, his family will become LA Knight's business. Jimmy goes to leave, but LA Knight stops him, saying Jimmy is the one in the family he likes. Knight has never cared for Roman Reigns, and if things start going badly, he'll put the family out of business. So LA Knight setting his sights on the King of the Ring and Roman Reigns. So we'll see if he is able to be successful in that tournament. I believe qualifying matches start next week. So we'll see who ends up in that and who kind of marches towards our next event that I believe it's supposed to be in Saudi Arabia. We'll see with continuing tensions in the Middle East. So we'll see if they end up doing that over there. We then have Adam Pearce. He likes the idea of Rey Mysterio getting an Intercontinental title shot, but Ethan Page comes in and says he doesn't feel the same. Page wants his rematch, which Adam Pearce says he has to earn. Page asks how Rey Mysterio earned a match in the first place, as he hasn't even wrestled in a long time, which doesn't sit well with Rey or Mr. Pearce. Rusev then comes in and asks what is going on. Ethan gives his version of the story, and that Rey is kind of getting in Rusev's path for an Intercontinental title match. Mysterio then asked to face Rusev for a title shot tonight, and Rusev agrees and even threatens to bangerang Mysterio, and everyone just kind of stands there confused after Rusev says that. So pretty good little line there for Rusev. We then have Seth Rollins defeat Montez Ford when Ford misses a 450, and then Seth follows it with a stomp. Angelo Dawkins is then knocked through the entrance as they start to kind of head back towards the back after the match, and gets beaten down with a chair by Austin Theory yet again, and he even concertos him like his head is on like a steel plate in the entranceway, and he kind of smashes his head with a chair there. They do show a camera angle of it, and Theory did not place the chair very well, and it is very clearly does not strike him at all. But so probably not the best camera work there by WWE. But the idea is that Dawkins is pretty badly beat up now. We then come back from commercial break, and Montez is trying to find out about Doc, how he's doing. When Seth Rollins comes up, Ford seems kind of solemn, but he says Seth Rollins is right because he does. They do need a third person to kind of ward off the Vision, despite the fact the Vision is only down to 2 people now, and they can go after the Vision together. Montez then goes in to check on Dawkins, and Rollins says he wants Braun Breaker soon, and Adam Pearce is off to talk to Paul Heyman about a possible matchup. We then have Becky Lynch. She is very pleased with facing Sol Ruca in a rematch at Clash in Italy, and says that there's a difference between flips and tricks and greatness, and it's time to welcome Sol to the big time. We then have Rey Mysterio. He defeats Rusev via pinfall when he counters an Accolade attempt into a roll-up, After the match, Rusev jumps Mysterio, but Dragon Lee appears and runs in for the save. Ethan Page then comes in and gets beaten down as well, with Dragon Lee giving him a running flip dive. Mysterio then 619s Rusev into Operation Dragon from Dragon Lee. So Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio stand tall to end the segment. Adam Pearce then throws Austin Theory out for the night, and Theory seems pretty pissed about this. Paul Heyman then sucks up to Adam Pearce, but they walk away, and Heyman rolls his eyes. They pass the Alpha Academy, which makes Maxine Dupree kind of disappear in a hurry, as she's very obviously somewhat tied into the Vision at this point. So we'll see what that continues to kind of go towards. We then get video once again of Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar, kind of hyping it up. We'll get that again throughout the week. And then we go to the contract signing for Tribal Combat. Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns come out. Fatu comes out first, signs the contract before destroying the contract signing set. This brings out Roman Reigns, who signs pretty quickly and even gets a happy birthday chant, as Monday was his birthday. We then have Roman tell Adam Pearce and the security to leave and says it's fine because Fatu has just signed a blood oath and no one can attack anyone until Tribal Combat commences. So they can just talk and be cordial. With everyone but Fatu and Reigns gone, Reigns says for the fans to acknowledge him, and they do, which is all Jacob ever had to do after their first match. Fatu had to acknowledge him, and they could have just moved on. Fatu says that would make him like everyone else in here, and that isn't happening. When Roman talks about honoring and respecting him, it's about living by the Bloodline's code. Did Roman do that at Backlash, or did he bend the rules to make sure that he walked away champion? Roman says that if Fatu wins on Sunday, he's the new tribal chief. But if Fatu can't dog walk his ass, Roman is going to domesticate Fatu. If Fatu can't beat him, Fatu will serve him, and in time, Fatu will learn to love Roman as his tribal chief. Fatu says it looks like a win-win for him then, because he has a job either way. Either he's the champion and the tribal chief, or he gets to be in the bloodline going forward. But then when Fatu wins, Roman and everyone else will learn to acknowledge him. They then shake hands and kind of touch heads in kind of a ceremonial kind of way, and that's the way that the show ends. So pretty good Raw, pretty good final build to the Clash in Italy show for the Raw side of things. I thought the main event segment was really good. Interested to see Tribal Combat, see what happens there. But yeah, I thought it was a really strong Raw for sure. As far as the best match in ring, Penta and Javon Evans would get that for me. Penta's on pretty good hot streak. He had the best match for me at Saturday night's main event. And he put together a pretty good one here. So he's been a really good Intercontinental champion. I would say it's very much ramped up in the last month or so for sure. But he is really showing that he's a great TV worker and somebody that they can trust going forward to be kind of a stalwart on TV. We then go to NXT from there. We open with Kalani Jordan defeating Ren Sinclair via submission. She actually makes her tap to the House of Pain. I was always a big fan of that submission, so interesting and kind of happy to see that one get pulled out. So Ren's obviously getting over a knee injury, which is why she kind of focused on the knee and went with that submission in the first place. But I thought that was a pretty cool kind of callback to old Charlie Haas. We then have Tatum Paxley and Lizzie Rain. They're in the back talking about their match last week when Shiloh Hill comes in. Tristan Angel eventually interrupts and complains about Shiloh's petition to become the new Mr. NXT. He takes the list and kind of looks at it and sees the Papa Shango name on it and kind of calls that out. Angels then says he hopes Charlie Dempsey stretches some sense into Shiloh tonight. We then have Dark State come out. Their little entrance video is the 4 mask of the guys that they wear. They have the big red X over Saquon Sugar's mask at this point. I thought that was a pretty nice touch to their entrance video. But they come out to cut a promo. They brag about their successes in other sports, but Saquon Sugars was just an independent wrestler. They all complain about Saquon while the fans sound like they're having some dueling chants about Saquon in the background. Lennox then says that there is no dark state without them, and now they're coming after everyone again, and they have their sights set on gold. So now with 3 of them, it kind of makes sense that one of them is kind of a single star and the other 2 kind of go for the tag title. So 4 was kind of a weird number, especially for NXT, because there's plenty of gold for them to win, but not enough maybe important gold to win. So because they could go after the speed title, but who cares? We then have Ren Sinclair. She's in the trainer's room. She's getting her knee looked out. And Lola Vice comes in to check on her. Callie Armstrong that comes in to mock Kendall, Ren, and Lola and says she will be watching Lola's title match later, and she'll be coming for the title after that. We then have a speed match, a speed tournament match at that, but it goes to a time limit draw. They only, obviously, these speed tournament matches only 3 minutes, with the title matches going 5. This only goes 3 minutes. This goes the whole 3 minutes, I should say. Dorian Van Dukes and Sean Legacy go to a time limit draw. So the other speed match that happens later on in the night is actually automatically the finals, because this was the other semifinal. But after the match, Dorian Van Dukes and Sean Legacy shake hands and kind of respect each other. We then have Natty. She is pleased with Layla Diggs for standing up to Jada Parker and will be in her corner tonight. This is kind of a call. It's not really a callback, because it's happened kind of as on TV as we're seeing this on NXT. But Layla is one of Natty's kind of proteges on LFG. It seems like I think they've kind of palled up on that show, or they've been kind of paired up on that show so far in the season. So obviously that was taped a while ago, but I think this is kind of a callback to that. We then go to a match, and Jada Parker defeats Layla Diggs when she hits the Hypnotic and Deja Vu kind of back-to-back and wins by pinfall. We then have Birthright. They aren't worried about the speed title tournament, but Fraxium comes in to kind of mock them a little bit, as Nathan Frazier is in the other speed tournament match that will end up being the number 1 contender match for the speed title. So he'll be taking on Romeo Moreno later on tonight. We then have video on Tony D'Angelo, who says he's ready for all comers. We then have D'Angelo come out to cut a promo. There are a lot of people around here going for the title, and next week he gets to face Cam Hendricks. D'Angelo is ready for him, but for now, he wants Naraku to come out here face to face. Naraku then comes out, who says he's here to keep D'Angelo's title safe. D'Angelo isn't buying that, but Naraku says he wants D'Angelo to be champion so they can go to war. Cam Hendricks then comes out, who says D'Angelo is running into a buzzsaw next week. D'Angelo says that Hendricks sees the title as a stepping stone to fame, and it doesn't go that easily. Naraku then clears Cam Hendricks out, and D'Angelo and Naraku stand tall. We then have Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne. They argue again over last week. Miles being too good to team with him anymore. Heights saying that he'll calm down. Dark States then jumps them both and leaves them laying, obviously implying that at least one of them is coming for Miles' North American Championship. We then have the Vanity Project. They run into Tate Wilder. Tate Wilder is from a motorcycle accident. Wilder is fine enough, though, to challenge Jackson Drake for next week, and Jackson Drake seems to accept. We then have our other speed tournament match. Romeo Moreno upsets Nathan Frazier via pinfall when he catches him with an inside cradle in the final seconds to become the number 1 contender for Lexis King's Speed Championship. We then have Izzy Dame and Nico Vance. They are warming up, but Sean Spears is nowhere to be found, so they are kind of upset about their mentor and leader not being around. We then have Robert Stone. He is happy Mason Rook attacked Cam Hendricks, but the reality is that Hendricks got the win, and he gets the title shot. Naraku then comes in and says Rook needs to stay out of the title match. We then have OTM come out for their match, but Sean Spears jumps them with a chair and takes them out before the match can even start. So that's where Sean Spears obviously was. The women's locker room then clears out to watch the main event. Callie Armstrong says that she is going to be watching both titles. Thea Hale then says that's not so easy, but Armstrong isn't impressed by Thea. Thea's kind of warning her of this. We then have Shiloh Hill. He is going over his voters' data and thinks he needs more Aussies. Zarya doesn't seem interested in signing his petition, but Lizzie Rain then jumps her from behind. We then have Shiloh Hill defeat Charlie Dempsey via pinfall following a back suplex. After the match, Tristan Angels is here to announce that in 2 weeks there will be a Mr. NXT beauty pageant, or maybe not a beauty pageant, but a Mr. NXT pageant. So we'll see who the true Mr. NXT is in a couple of weeks. So we then go to Izzy Dame. She yells at Sean Spears for not being around all day. He apologizes for the attack that he did earlier on the night of her title match instead of focusing on strategy for her match later. We then go to her match. Lola Vice ends up winning via pinfall following a spinning back fist. And then we go to Dark State after the match. They're leaving the arena and promise more chaos next week. As they go and walk away, we see Saquon Sugar's kind of, he's kind of on the prowl on top of one of the trucks or a building or something like that in the background. And he's shown kind of standing there watching them leave as the show goes to a close. But I thought the Lola Izzy match was really strong, a really strong main event, a really strong women's match. As per I feel like it's pretty regularly a women's match on NXT that's pretty strong. So the women's division, despite being gutted every now and then by talent going up and to the main roster and stuff like that, they continue to churn out some pretty good stars. So definitely check that one out if you haven't already. We then go to Dynamite. We go back to Double or Nothing. Will Ospreay was happy with his win and runs into Kenny Omega. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. They get to the point with Omega asking why Ospreay is hanging around with the Death Riders. Omega said that Ospreay could have trained with him if he wanted to be the world champion, but Ospreay points out that Omega is barely ever around. That leaves Omega without much of a defense, but as a friend, he wants Ospreay to watch out for the Death Riders. Ospreay doesn't seem offended, but Jon Moxley comes in to even say himself that he thinks what Kenny just said is good advice. Moxley then gives Ospreay a bag of ice and says that the truck is outside when he's ready. Moxley then goes away, and Omega says Ospreay can call him anytime, and they seem to part as buddies still. So again, like I said, I think they could do something with Kenny, kind of surprise winning the title, maybe the next pay-per-view over MJF, and they kind of lead to this. But we'll see what they do. Definitely some interesting directions that they could go. We then have Kevin Knight coming out to explain his actions. He knows everyone wants to know why he did what he did. The answer is because Darby let them all down, and even though they're in Philadelphia, he's not trusting the process. Knight was the last person to beat MJF, and he didn't even get a title shot. Instead, Knight was sitting on the bench, even though he isn't a bench player. He wasn't wasting any time because he should have been in the main event. This brings out Speedball, who thinks Knight can just turn around and apologize. Knight seems to kind of give in to this idea, and they go to shake hands, but Knight ends up just kind of bumping his shoulder, and then he kind of starts to walk away, but comes back and lays Speedball out. So Jet Speed is officially dead. We then have Ricochet. He's with his Demand buddies, and he isn't worried about facing Chris Jericho tonight, even if his buddies are banned from ringside. Should have been worried about that, though, because Chris Jericho defeats him via pinfall following a Judas effect and then hitting a Lion Salt for the win. After the match, Jericho celebrates, but Tommaso Ciampa then comes in and jumps him from behind, and he loads up the running knee and nails it, to leave Jericho laying to end the segment. We then have Andrade El Idolo. He wants the world title because he's that awesome and he's better than MJF. We then have Rush defeat Orange Cassidy, Leo Rush, and Brian Cage when Rush hits the horns on Leo for the win. I don't know that they particularly said this was for anything, but we'll see something with Rush later that'll kind of explain maybe where he's coming from. We then have MJF. He runs into Kevin Knight and thanks him for the beatdown on Sunday. Knight says he's coming for the world title, which doesn't sit well with MJF. Kyle Fletcher then comes in to stare down Kevin Knight as he has his TNT championship, and Don Callis likes what he's seen out of Kevin Knight as of late. We then get a video on Mark Briscoe, kind of hyping him up, showing some of his past accomplishments and stuff like that. We then have the Brawling Birds. They aren't happy with Jamie Hayter not getting a win on Sunday, but Alex Windsor is ready for whomever she is facing in the Women's Owen Hart Cup. Obviously, this is the wild card that should have been Willow Nightingale, but again, Willow Nightingale out with injury. We then have MJF to come out to brag a little bit about his big win on Sunday. He's rather pleased with being a 3-time world champion by the time that he's 30 years old. They will talk about him for years to come. He has a banner drop down and confetti fall. But here's Mark Briscoe to interrupt. He calls MJF a stranger in a stranger place here in Philadelphia, almost like he's a penguin. Briscoe accuses MJF of thinking he's above everyone else. Briscoe beat him not too long ago. So he wants a title shot and asks if MJF is going to man up. MJF says that is a firm no, because this is business and Mark Briscoe is not business. MJF then goes to leave and is cut off by Roosh, kind of like I was talking about earlier. Roosh says he wants the title as well. MJF says, maybe not tonight, but actually I'll face you next week. So Roosh and MJF for the world title next week on Dynamite. Or I don't know if they said it was on Dynamite or Collision per se, but I assume it's on Dynamite. We then have Jack Perry. He's on his bus and uses the loudspeaker to say he is ready for Mark Davis. And then he does a kind of Rocky-like training montage. So we'll see what happens there. We then have Brody King defeat Claudio Castagnoli via pinfall following a big kind of clothesline from hell type clothesline. This advances Brody King to face Swerve Strickland in the semifinals of the Owen Hart Cup. So we'll see. Obviously, Swerve beat Brody's buddy Bandito in the first round. So we'll see Brody and Swerve go at it in the next round. We then have Cope and Cage. They come out to cut a promo about winning the tag team titles at Double or Nothing. Christian Cage says some of his classic catchphrases and says, it wasn't that bad because he didn't bang any of the fans' mothers. Okay, maybe he did. Either way, though, FTR was the top team, but not the tippy top team like Cope and Cage are now. Cope is so happy that he's bringing back the 5-second pose. Cage points out that there is no such thing as flash photography anymore, but Cope whips out a bag of disposable cameras, which he stocked up 25 years ago just in case. Cage seems stunned by this, and Cope hands them out to some fans and explains the concept. But then the War Dogs come out and attack them, break up the 5-second pose, and they start the beatdown. And they focus on Christian Cage's bad arm and kind of slam it into the steps with with a chair and just really beat on it pretty hard. And then the Dogs do their own pose and promise to win the tag team titles. We then have Swerve Strickland. He is happy with his first round win and is ready to take out Brody King as well in the semifinals to advance to the finals of the Owen Hart Cup. We then have TJ. They defeat Allie Katch and Ava Everett and they win when Anna Jay does a gory bomb on Everett into Tay Mello's knee. So this is kind of their tag team finisher that they did back when they were regularly teaming. And then we go to Mike Bailey. He says he wants to face Kevin Knight next week. And then we get our other Owen Hart Cup match where Mark Davis defeats Jack Perry via pinfall following an absolutely disgusting pile driver from the middle rope. And Davis, in winning this, will face Will Ospreay in the semifinals of the Owen. A matchup of old Aussie Open, kind of compatriots, I guess is what I'll say. So they used to be buddies. They used to be in a kind of faction together. So we'll see what happens with them. But I thought that was the best match of the night. I really have been into what Mark Davis has been doing lately, and these two guys seem to have pretty good chemistry because I think when Mark won the national title from Jack, that was also the match of the night of that show. So I think they have some pretty good chemistry with each other and can pull out some pretty good matches. So from there, we'll go to Collision Part 1, I guess is what I'll call it, because they do a Collision immediately after Dynamite. I guess they probably should have just made all of this Dynamite, but they call it Collision, but they also have a Collision on Saturday, so we'll see. We'll see what happens on the other part of Collision. But as far as the first part, the part that happened right after Dynamite, we open with Mark Davis kind of throwing Jack Perry around and kind of throwing him out of the ring. Don Callis then threatens Will Ospreay, who is obviously Mark Davis' second round opponent, like I said. With that out of the way, Callis insults Konosuke Takeshita, who was never anything compared to Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher then comes out, who gets a big hug from Callis and brags about being back from a serious injury so quickly. He is a genetic freak and is officially medically cleared to return to the ring. He wanted to get back. To cut away the dead weight of the Don Callis family, which means Takeshita himself. Takeshita, with the conglomeration, come out and quickly clear out the ring. Takeshita is glad to have his title back, but wants Fletcher in the future, who seems interested in a match, possibly for the international title. We then have Will Ospreay. He is fired up for a 6-man match. Marina Shafir, John Moxley are cool with Ospreay, but Pac doesn't seem into the idea of him being part of their ranks. We then have Pac, John Moxley, and Will Ospreay. They defeat the Rascals when they all three get them them to tap in individual submissions, with Ospreay making Reed tap to the cross arm breaker as the one that kind of counts for the fall because they were the two legal men. We then have the Ops. They say that even though things haven't been going well, the mission doesn't change. That being said, Samoa Joe is once again stepping away for a few months to film some kind of movie or TV role. I'm sure it's the Twisted Metal TV show. I'm sure it's something to do with that. But Samoa Joe just came back, and now he's already gone again. So might as well break up the group because Bowens and Hook aren't really doing all that much, and neither of them are all that interesting as a team. So we'll see what the hit future for Shibata's. I feel like Shibata's rarely been around lately as well. So we'll see what they end up doing with them. They then hype up the main event, which is going to be a lights out street fight between Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander, with both of them kind of talking about how sick they are of one another as they've kind of been teaming lately and it hadn't been going too well. We then cut back to Lena Cross and Megan Bain. They have laid out Tay Mello and Anna Jay, who they will be facing on the other half of Collision on Saturday. We then have Andrade El Idolo defeat Ace Austin via pinfall following the DM. And then we get that street fight, the lights out street fight, where Chris Statlander defeats Hikaru Shida via pinfall following a Saturday Night Fever. We had some light tubes in this match. We had tables, and it was pretty brutal. Statlander took a light tube shot to the back, and she was bleeding pretty profusely from a cut on her back. So if you're a big fan of kind of hardcore wrestling, I think this one was a pretty good match for you. And I would go with that for best match. I thought Ace and Andrade was really good as well. So pretty good little collision happening right after Dynamite. So I'm not ever going to say somebody has to check out an entire episode of TV, but pound for match wise, this is probably as highly ranking of matches per on a show, I would say every match kind of delivered is what I'm trying to say. But like I said, Stat and Sheeta would be the best match for me. We then have Impact coming up. We open with the men's champions challenge match. So this is all of the champions teaming up to take on all of their quote unquote challengers. Kind of in a big tag team match. So the challengers team of Frankie Kazarian, Leon Slater, Eric Young, Elijah and Casey Navarro defeat the champions team of Mustafa Ali, Bear Bronson, Brian Myers, Cedric Alexander, and Mike Santana win. Navarro actually hits the blessing in disguise on Mustafa Ali and gets an upset win. So probably the least likely person to get the pinfall in the match ends up getting it. So we then have Ariana Grace. She complains about not being thrown into a Knockouts title match on short notice and losing as a result. Therefore, it's time for Stax to beat up her father, Santino Marella. And no, she won't visit Santino when he is in a nursing home. The Righteous then invite the Broken Hardys to come to the Wicked Garden. We then have Tessa Blanchard defeat Harley Hudson via pinfall following the buzzsaw. We then go to the personal concierge. She interrupts Lei Ying Lee and tells her not to screw this up for the Elegance brand later on tonight for the Women's Champions Challenge match, which will end up being our main event. We then have Stax defeat Santino Marella via pinfall when Ariana Grace steals the Cobra from her father, and this allows Stax to kind of sneak up from behind and roll Santino up. We then go to after the match, and Grace yells at Santino and slaps him, but he grabs her arm. Stax then jumps him from behind, but Indy Hartwell makes the save and wants a mixed tag team match right now. Daria Ray then comes out and says no because Stax won fair and square, but we can do the mixed tag match next week. We then have AJ Francis yell at someone for not having paperwork ready for him. It needs to be there by tomorrow at the absolute latest. So we'll see what AJ Francis is up to. We then have Fabian Eichner make his in-ring debut. He defeats Eddie Edwards, but it's via DQ when he seemingly kind of has the match wrapped up, but the rest of the system run in to help Edwards as he's kind of, like I said, he's kind of in trouble towards the end of the match. We then have the Women's Champions Challenge match where Zaya Brookside, Mara Sade, and Elena Black defeat Lei Ying Lee and the Elegance brand when Zaya hits the dark side on Lei Ying Lee for the win. So kind of setting her up as the next challenger for the Knockouts Championship. So obviously that's kind of, where we thought they were going anyways. But this one kind of falls apart on the idea of this being the challengers for the other side, because this is basically just three women that want the Knockouts Championship against the tag team champions and the regular champion. So the idea kind of falls apart a little bit on that one. But the Men's Champions Challenge match was the best match of the show. Not a very strong in-ring week for Impact. It was saying that's the best match is not a very big hype because it wasn't really that great at the same time. But of the four matches they had, I would go with that one if I had to give a best match out, which I do on this show. So, but we then go to SmackDown. We look at Jade Cargill beating Rhea Ripley in the six-woman tag team match at Saturday night's main event. Jade comes out with B-Fab and Meechin. B-Fab and Meechin tell the fans to shut up as they boo Jade rather loudly. They know Jade is going to win the title back on Sunday because the future is now. Rhea Ripley then interrupts and says, yeah, the fans seem to like her, but Ripley says that she has beaten Cargill before and she can do it again, with Cargill looking up at the true champion. Cargill isn't impressed, but here is Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss to interrupt. They don't think much of Cargill either, so Cargill interrupts Bliss, or insults Bliss, I should say, who says she's dealt with bigger and better than her in the past. Nick Aldis comes out and makes a match between Alexa and Jade Cargill for right now. Jade Cargill then defeats Alexa Bliss via pinfall following Jaded. After the match, Cargill grabs a chair and gives Bliss another Jaded on a steel chair. And then Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair kind of run off to clear Cargill out of the ring, which is kind of too late. So I don't really know what they did in that situation, but I guess they at least tried to help their friend at some point. We then look at Cody Rhodes beating Sami Zayn last week, despite Gunther's interference. Gunther laid Cody Rhodes out at the end of the show with Sami Zayn walking away. Rhodes is interrupted by Sami backstage. It has nothing to say to him. Sami wants an apology and says he helped Cody with Gunther last week, but then Cody stabbed him in the back. Cody doesn't remember it that way, but Sammy thinks that Cody could learn a lesson. After Rhodes deals with Gunther, he can teach Zayn a lesson as well. We then have Nick Aldis. He wants Danhausen to appear in front of the crowd as he's paid to do. Danhausen agrees and goes off, only to be replaced by The Miz. As Danhausen is seen loading stuff into what appears to be his laboratory, Miz complains about Kit Wilson not being here, and Aldis doesn't want to hear it and says that the Miz's match tonight is next. We then go from there, and Axiom is able to defeat The Miz via pinfall following the golden ratio. The lights had kind of gone out due to Danhausen doing some experimenting in the back, and that caused The Miz to kind of be distracted long enough for Axiom to hit the golden ratio to get the win. We then have R-Truth in the back. He is still injured, so he has gotten Damian Priest, a tag team partner for tonight. And that would be Royce Keys, who will team with Priest to take on the MFTs later tonight. Priest doesn't buy it and doesn't trust Keys, but Truth gets smart, asking if either of them are scared. Both of them say obviously they're not. And since they're not, there's no reason for them to not team up. Priest chases after R-Truth in confusion, but we kind of cut away from there. We then have Sami Zayn. He vents to Candice LeRae, or we think it's Candice LeRae, but it eventually is just Johnny Gargano, again laid out on top of one of the kind of anvil cases, who's still just laying there comatose. LeRae then storms off, and Matt Cardona comes in to try to talk some sense into Sammy. That's not cool with Sammy, and they basically challenge each other to a match later on tonight. We then have Charlotte. She leaves Alexa Bliss in the trainer's room and runs into Rhea, who better take care of Jade tomorrow night. If she doesn't, Charlotte will. We then have the MFTs of Tala and Tama Tonga defeat Damian Priest and Royce Keys when Tala hits the choke slam on Damian to get the win. We then go to the Miz. He complains again to Nick Aldis that the lights all went out and goes in to see Danhausen's laboratory. This earns him a blast from a fire extinguisher, sending the Miz running. Aldis goes underneath a sheet in there, but Danhausen warns him he better not do that. We then have another video of the tribal combat, kind of hyping that up for Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns. Chelsea Green then comes in to see Tiffany Stratton and has an idea for their entrance tonight. Tiffany says it was just a one-time thing last week, so she's passing on going out with Chelsea tonight, and Chelsea seems hurt by the idea that they're not actually friends. We then get kind of the same video of the El Grande Americanos and the Mask versus Match for Saturday. They kind of show the same one that they did on Raw, kind of hyping up the history of Mask versus Mask and all that kind of stuff, kind of hyping it up. So we'll again talk about that when we get past Collision. We then go to Sami Zayn. He's able to defeat Matt Cardona via pinfall with a haluva kick. We then are shown a video for the King and Queen of the Ring. And we get announced that qualifying matches start next week, so kind of hyping up the history and importance of all of that. We then go to Nick Aldis. He asks Gunther to keep things civilized with Cody later tonight. Gunther doesn't like that what Nick Aldis is implying, and he seems kind of pissed that he would be any other way, but he'll do what Nick Aldis wants him to do, even in a place as crappy as Barcelona. We then have Trick Williams with Lil Yachty. Trick brags about his success since he's been on the main roster, and now it means he should come after the King of the Ring tournament. This brings out Carmelo Hayes, who says Trick can be the king on the microphone and entrances the ring is Carmelo's place. Trick thinks that Carmelo is being melodramatic, but because he's just not as good as Trick is. If only Ricky Saints hadn't interfered last week, their match would have been different, you see. This brings out Ricky Saints, who doesn't like the suggestion and is ready to beat Carmelo Hayes and move on to Trick Williams. That earns him a slap from Trick, and the scheduled match between Ricky Saints and Carmelo Hayes commences. It then ends in a double countout, and then after the match, Carmelo Hayes lays him out with the first 48. We then get another hype video for Brock Lesnar versus Obafemi. We then go to the Irresistible Forces. They threaten Tiffany Stratton as they will be facing Niall will be facing Chelsea Green later on tonight. And she doesn't. They're kind of threatening Tiffany, like her and Chelsea are actually friends. We then go to Blake Monroe in a vignette. She writes in her diary about some of the women in the SmackDown locker room. She says Rhea Ripley is sad, and Blake Monroe is going to have to make things better for her. So, implying that she's aiming high, immediately as she's coming in. So we'll see how that goes for old Blake. We then have Chelsea Green defeat Nia Jax via pinfall when Tiffany Stratton defeats. When Tiffany Stratton comes out and nails Nia Jax with her U.S. Women's title, allowing Chelsea to get the pin off of that. After the match, Stratton declines a hug from Chelsea. Give it time, though, or we need to. It seems like we're kind of getting it to the point where they're going to end up being buddies at some point, and Chelsea Green seems to be turning into a pretty likable face. So we'll see what kind of ends up happening there. We then go to Cody Rhodes to wrap things up. We pause for the fans to sing his theme song and Cody to ask what we want to talk about, but he says it in Spanish as we hear in Spain. Gunther then interrupts before he can say anything else. Gunther says Rhodes is the perfect choice to represent America because the American dream is crumbling. When he was growing up, Gunther was told that if he worked hard, he could achieve anything. On the other hand, you have Cody Rhodes, who only had to make some phone calls. That just makes Rhodes an entitled brat. Gunther sees the fans' approval as unnecessary, while Cody is just a mark for himself. Cody then calls Gunther a liar because he doesn't believe Gunther doesn't want the attention that becomes with being the WWE champion. If Gunther didn't care, he would be talking to a 330-pound version of Gunther at an indie show rather than one of the best in the world. Paul Heyman has said that being champion is addictive, and Gunther wants to find out. The only thing he'll find out, though, is the worst thing a pure wrestler can learn. He's just not good enough. Gunther talks about everyone he has beaten and all the promises that he has kept. Now he promises to choke Cody Rhodes out and take the title with him. And when he makes promises, they come true. As he kind of talks about AJ and retiring him, John Cena and retiring him, all that kind of stuff. So that's what he's basically trying to say when he says that. Not the strongest in-ring episode for SmackDown. I thought the final segment between Cody and Gunther was pretty awesome, but not the best in-ring show. So Zayn and Cardona was a good match, but that's the best match on the show, which is probably kind of a damning indictment on how good the show was at the same time. So, Sammy's really good, but Cardona's kind of hit and miss. So, but we'll go from there to Collision Part 2. Konosuke Takeshita thanks the conglomeration for having his back on Dynamite and promises that this isn't over with the Don Callis family. And then the conglomeration actually give Takeshita his very own backpack to hold his championship in, as they have their trios titles in their backpacks. And then they come out to defend their trios championships. Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Orange Cassidy. They defeat the Don Callis family, represented by Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta, and Lance Archer. And Cassidy gets the win by hitting the top rope elbow on Rocky Romero. We then get video on the Divine Dominion, Megan Bayne and Lena Cross, kind of hyping them up. We then have the Divine Dominion 5-minute challenge. TJ, Tay Mello, and Anna Jay are able to survive that 5-minute challenge, and this earns them a future title shot down the road. We then get a long recap of Wednesday's Dynamite and Collision, kind of part 1. We then go to Tommaso Ciampa. He was hoping that Chris Jericho would be here to get some revenge, but instead is not here at all. Therefore, we'll go with the 1,004 reasons why Tommaso Ciampa hates Chris Jericho. He hates, or he says that Fozzy sucks. He doesn't like the light up jackets, and he doesn't like the cruises that he makes everyone go on, and he thinks his arm bars stink as well. Tommaso Ciampa hates that full head of hair that Chris Jericho has too, and Jericho needs to understand that this isn't some happiness tour, and he promises to take Jericho out when it's all said and done. We then have Stardom champion Hazuki defeat Maya World via pinfall following a top rope senton splash. After the match, Persephone, who will be taking her on in the first round, of the Owens women's tournament kind of gets in the ring for a stare down. We then have they're in Huntsville, Alabama. So they do a kind of random Midnight Express tribute, as both Condrey and Eaton were both from there. So they kind of hype them up in all of their accomplishments. And it's kind of a tribute. Both of them have passed away at this point. So they kind of just, give them some credence and love there. We then have video on Lee Moriarty. He is the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, and he's almost been the champion for two years at this point. So kind of hyping him up, kind of letting people know who he is that may not have known who he was before. He then has a match. He squashes Tim Bosby via submission with the Border City stretch. After the match, Shane Taylor Promotions comes in to praise Moriarty and insult the fans, but the Death Riders come in to make their entrance for their match and kind of cut them off. And then Shane Taylor kind of hops on commentary for this next match. We then have the Death Riders of Moxley and Pac defeat the infantry of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean when Mox hits Bravo with the Death Rider. So they get a pretty quick victory there. The Triangle of Madness is then happy with Tekla retaining her championship, but Sky Blue does imply that she's coming for the women's title, as she is in the Owen Hart tournament. So we'll see if Tekla ends up facing her buddy later on in the tournament. We then have Leo Rush. We have the conglomeration. They're kind of cut a promo about being trios champions. Then Leo Rush comes in with an umbrella and he kind of spooks them out. And they all kind of separate from there after he kind of comes through and makes his weird noises and faces and stuff like that. We then have the Dogs to throw out the disposable cameras from the 5-second pose because Alabama is too stupid to use smartphones. And then they do the pose of guns down because a certain team is coming out to face them next, and that is the Guns. But the Dogs beat the Guns when Finlay blasts Austin Gunn with a shillelagh, and Clark Connors follows it with a spear. After the match, the Dogs stay on them, but the rest of the Bang Bang Gang, Juice Robinson and Ace Austin, come in to save their buddies. We then get a video of the upcoming Kevin Knight versus Mike Bailey match. We then go to an announcement that the TBS title will be decided in a survival of the fittest 6-woman elimination match. It'll take place on July 1st, and qualifying matches will take place in the coming weeks to qualify for that. We then have the Don Callis family of Brian Cage and Jake Doyle, who is crazily back from injury quickly as well. They defeat Jimmy Wild and Tommy Mars when Cage hits a sit-out powerbomb on Mars. After the match, Konosuke Takeshita comes out for the main event, and Doyle and Cage kind of have to be held back from attacking him as they're Don Callis family members. We then have Konosuke Takeshita defeat Daniel Garcia via pinfall following a Raging Fire. After the match, Moxley, who had been on commentary for the match, says he appreciated the match and obviously was proud of Daniel Garcia for his effort, but also wanted to show some respect to Takeshita as well. But the Don Callis family comes out to jump Takeshita. Moxley gets up to help, but Shane Taylor Promotions, who the Death Riders had obviously offended earlier, jump him as well. We then have the conglomeration come out to get in the fight. Nigel McGuinness even gets in the fight a little bit with Sean Dean. And then Mike Bailey runs in, and all of the good guys end up standing tall. Takeshita seems to nod thank you to Moxley and shows respect to Garcia to end the show. That match was the best match on the show. Again, like I said earlier, if Takeshita is on your screen, he probably had at least the best, one of the best matches on the show, if not the best, 90% of the time. But that'll wrap up everything that I have written down for the week. Like I said earlier, we had the AAA show last night, completely centered around the Americanos match. I thought it was absolutely incredible. The presentation, the entrances, they had like a mariachi band play the original out into the ring. And then obviously the 2.0 version is super over in Mexico right now. He got a huge ovation, absolutely incredible response from the crowd to his entrance and all that kind of stuff. So Just an incredible presentation. The match had all the bells and whistles. They each have their sidekicks. 2.0 has Bravo and Rayo, and then the OG has Bruto and Julio Americano. So they all come out, they all get involved. Like I said, bells and whistles all over the place. And then 2.0 ends up hitting the super running headbutt to get the win. And obviously the OG Grande Americano has to unmask from there. And obviously, as we've all known from the very beginning, it was Chad Gable. They do a pretty good, Corey Graves on commentary did a pretty good job of selling that, because he was like, oh my gosh, it's Chad Gable. Like, we didn't all know that from the very beginning. So I would like to think this leads to, 2.0, or the only Grande Americano now, eventually getting the mega title, because I think he's pretty solidly over with that crowd. I think they could build to a match between him and Dom, with El Grande Americano being the champion eventually. So I think that's where that'll eventually go. I thought it was a really strong presentation. If you haven't seen it, I won't say you have to watch the whole show, even though matches were solid on the undercard, but definitely check out the Grande Americano match. It was everything you want in professional wrestling. I think anyone who loves professional wrestling will probably enjoy it. So definitely check that out. Thank you for joining me as always, and we will see you next week.